Hey Ryan, I can't help but notice you have a passport in your hands and some leather pieces there. What's going on?
Well, today we're doing another installation of a Popov Leather DIY video, and we're going to assemble, sew, and complete a Popov Leather passport cover. Because as soon as the borders open, you're going to want a premium Horween Leather passport cover to keep your passport safe. Also, with the given time on your hands, you have nothing better to do. Your kit's going to come with your premium Horween panels, a sandpaper piece, your thread for sewing, 2 needles, a little flib nib here for burnishing, and your Popov leather balm. The only other thing that you don't have in your kit will be some standard craft glue. Most work with leather, a lighter, and some awesome scissors. So let's get started. Moving these things aside, you're going to grab your 2 pieces, the inside and the outside, your smallest thread, and your 2 needles. We'll start by threading your needle. Descringle your thread like this to get rid of any curves and twists. And here we're going to thread, so follow up close here. Push your thread through the eye of the needle. Pull, double back, and giving about a centimeter, push through, like this. Now you'll pull back, and it won't come undone. Tighten, awesome. Let's do the other side. Push through the eye of the needle. Pull, giving about a centimeter, will pierce the thread as such. Pull it back, tighten, and now we're ready to sew. We're going to do the saddle stitch as always, as it's the strongest and most reliable stitch. Starting from the front of your project, we're going to put a needle right through the center hole. Line them up, and you'll want to pull it through until the needles are equidistant from the pockets here, as such. Now, holding the tension on this back needle, on this thread pulling down, take this needle and push it through. The first 2 holes are the trickiest. Keeping tension, now pull down and back through. So now that we have our product in place here, we'll go in more depth. Needle goes in to the other side. Drop it down, pull this one up and over. Pull this one back to keep tension, and you'll go through. One more time. Through the project. Notice how this finger is always keeping this thread tense. That's important. Let go and switch. I'm going to slightly speed up here, can you see? This is your saddle stitch. Once you get to the end of your project, or the end of the holes here, you'll do what we call a back stitch. So here we are, 1 needle on each side. This one goes back to where it came from, into the back of the project, making sure not to pierce the thread the entire time. This one to the front of the project. Again, always being cautious not to pierce the thread. Once through, 1 final stitch in the back, and that's your back stitch. Nice cascade. Making sure it's tense the entire time, you'll have this one directional stitch. Awesome. Now, holding tension on the back of your project, take your awesome scissors, leaving a little bit left, maybe a millimeter or 2, holding tension, and cut. That's a little bit more extra than we need here. That's good. Now we're going to take your lighter, and we're going to melt them. Perfect. We don't want to melt any of these threads, just the ends, so they couch right on these little holes here. Perfect. We'll give that a little squanch. Your pocket's done. Now, grab your other panels. Flip your passport upside down, and you'll see where these line up. Awesome. You're going to take your crafting glue and carefully add an even bead along the outside of your project, leaving the last hole unglued. As you can see right here, that won't be covered up.
And most craft glues will work. Any sort of white crafting glue tends to do the trick. The kind that we use in this video is Elmer's. It actually says leather right on the label, but most glue, as long as it keeps your leather pieces in place, should work.
There we go. You want an even bead as much as possible. You're going to take your finger and run it on. Without getting glue in the holes, spread it evenly. That's pretty good. And another pass. If you get glue in the holes, give it the old. And this side as well. Any missed spots, you can go back and put a little dab. There we are. Now, let's go do the other sides. Once glued together, we'll be able to sew the project. Perfect. That's a good bead. Awesome. Do the old smear. And this one as well. Again, any glue in those holes. Just blow them out. And carefully line up. Make sure there's no glue on your mat or your surface. Start with the corners. And line them up nice. Double check before you squish. You're going to give a nice even squish from the center outwards like this. Making sure they line up. Great. Finish your seam. And make sure this pocket, the inside pocket, doesn't pop out too much. This bit here. That's looking good so far. Once together, you have a bit of leeway and play by just pushing it to the seams before the glue starts to really stick. And then you have one side. That looks pretty good. Now, the more time you put into doing this, the less you'll have to do when you're sanding and finishing at the end. A nice even edge, perfectly lined up. Next side, corner and corner. Awesome. Squish. That's great. Double check. Give it a nice compression. Walk the edges with your fingers like this. That's going to make it nice and strong. Awesome. Now we're ready to start sewing again. Take your 2 needles, and we're just going to cut the old thread off them. It's easiest to do that if you have a little bit of tension on the string when you cut it. That's one done. Second one here. There we go. Pull that off. Great. We're going to de-scringle this one as well. Just take it from one edge to the other like this. Nice and flat. Just as before, we'll thread the needle. Pull it through. Leave a bit. Stab it. You get the letter D or B or P. Pull it and tighten. Likewise, another one. Pull up. Perfect. Do one more of these, and we'll start at the first hole on the project. Right here. You can pick any side. Again, making sure that your needles are equidistant. Otherwise, towards the end of your project, you'll run out of thread on one of these needles. Double check. That looks good. Again, holding the tension on this back string. Let's give this another squish. Holding tension on this back string. Push the first string through the hole. Pull. Drop. Switch. Pull. Once your first one's done, make sure it's nice and tight without compromising this edge by pulling too hard. That looks good. Do that again. As you can see, push through, pull and drop. Notice how this one's under tension. I'm going to pull it and I'm going to take out any twists or scringles as I do it every time. That ensures that you don't have any twists in your saddle stitch. Again, pull through and back. Once you get the hang of it, it's just muscle memory. Here we go.
So Ryan, while you're sewing that, where's your first destination when you can fly on a plane again?
I think I'm going to go to Sri Lanka and eat an egg roll. Or maybe I'll go to Bosnia and have a meat pie. So notice how my hands are just doing this by themselves. I'm not really thinking anymore. I'm making sure that the threads are always held tight and tense, just like that. Then you don't have to really pay attention, you just go with the flow, like that. All the while, one of the things to look out for too is if you accidentally pierce the other thread, sometimes the best thing to do is actually, instead of trying to go backwards, is cut your needle off the thread at the end, here, cut it off, undo it, and then rethread it after. Because sometimes trying to fish it back to undo the piercing is really hard to do. But since you're paying so much attention, you shouldn't have that issue. Okay, we've done it. We made it. We made it together. One needle on one side, one on the other. We're going to double back as before. That's your back stitch. Without piercing the other thread, you can just follow the shape. See, that's a pierce. We're going to come back, tighten it, try again. Let's get it in there without having an issue. There we go. Give it a nice pull. I'm going to finalize it, put it through, no piercing. Done. Now holding tension on your strings, we're going to do your cut. Just like this. Hopefully you can see that. That's a decent amount left behind. Take your lighter. And good. If you give it too much heat, they'll turn black. That's not what we want. Awesome. We're going to rethread for the final stitch and move on to the finishing process. There we go. Beauty. And take this guy. Without making a knot, unravel it. Good. Take out all your squiggles and scringles. Perfect. Back to the top. Thread that needle. Leave a bit. Stab it. Pull it. Done. That again. Thread it. Stab it. Pull it. Done. We're going to start on the opposite side. For example, we started here. You can see these little back stitch. We'll start up here. Starting with your first hole. Making sure your needles are equal, right? So that looks good. Holding tension on your back thread so it doesn't come through anymore. Match that hole. Pull. Let go. And we're good. Back through again. Now that's done, it gets easier every one you do. And you'll notice as your thread gets shorter, it gets easier. There's less fumbling and stumbling and more just clean sewing. One trick when you glue your project together is to hold it up to the light to see if you can see through the holes, if they're lined up well. And it's a good thing to do before you start sewing, because if there's a little offset between the two pieces, you'll feel it with your needle. One thing you'll notice if you pick up speed with your sewing, if you have any fingernails, you'll totally scuff your project up. But depending on your leather type, it's very easy to buff out. So now we're about the halfway point. Let's check our tension. Make sure I haven't made any mistakes. pretty good. Looks good. Let's keep going.
So when you're checking for tension, what are you looking for?
I want to make sure that each of these is the same size and goes from one direction to the other. You'll see this little cascade. If the tension's not even, you'll have different ones that are popped up and it won't look even. That's why I always recommend this pull back. Pull through, pull back through, down, let it go, pull this up, and now you're putting your tension on there. So the tension that you've come through is held in place and it can't be undone as your project progresses. Oh, that's a never before.
That's a blowout.
That's a blowout. We got a blowout, first blowout on a DIY video.
So how do you fix that?
We're gonna give the old snip, flatten, push, and reboot. That was exciting.
Anything can happen in these videos.
My heart's going a mile a minute. Backstitch time. This one goes through the front. Make sure not to pierce anything. That looks good. Nope, it's pierced. There we go. Pull through. And back again. That one's done. This one just goes back one. You should have two little, where are we here? That's perfect. You should have two lines of stitches. I somehow flipped this one upside down. Started here, should have ended there. It's all good. And pull and cut. We'll do our burn. Good stuff. Double check. Two there. Those are well backstitched. Good cascade. All the way through, no frays, no lumps, bumps, or flumps. Other side, likewise. Our burn marks aren't black or misshapen. Let's finish. We've finished stitching our passport cover. It's looking great. We're feeling great. Let's finish it. Grab your little sandpaper square. Check your edges. Looks good. We're going to start. There's a few different ways to do it. You could do two at once, holding down like this, flat against the surface, nice and even. You could do it by your hand like this, or you could do a combo pack, or one at a time. I'll try the two at a time.
What's the combo pack?
Well, you do both.
You do both. Okay.
I mean, you don't really have anything else to do with your time, so you might as well spend the next 2 days doing this. There we go. Good start. I want it nice and flat. You don't want any lines. Okay, once it's flat, you can deburr it again by a nice little like after fluff, like whoop, 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 swoop, swoop, swoop. Let's do this bottom end here. Notice how I'm holding close to where I'm sanding so there's not too much flamp or blamp. That's better. Okay. Do the corners again. Looks good. I'm satisfied. Check your edges. If there's any raised edge from sanding, you can just give the old and one of these. That looks good though. Sweet. Check this out. So it got a little scuffed up as I'm shimming it around. Beauty of this leather is you can just buff it out. Now, let's grab this jazz. Our Popov leather balm restores and protects. Oh, what a dream. Get a liberal amount. Like that. We're gonna do the edges. Butter them up nice and smooth. Good, one more here. Awesome. Just think of how amazing you're gonna look boarding that plane with a leather passport cover. Everyone's gonna be staring at you and wondering, who is that person and why are they so important? Okay, now comes our secret weapon, the Horween Leather burnishing rectangle. Notice the juicy, dark edge. That's what we're looking for here. And likewise over here. That's good. This one too. Now it looks like $1 million. And you'll probably feel like $1 million too. Now that we're complete, you grab your passport, you can fit it in there. Beauty. Spot for business cards or maybe a SD drive or a microfilm. There you go. Popov leather passport cover.
Looks awesome, Ryan. Nice work.
Thanks.
Any advice to people at home making this project?
Make sure you have a good attitude, don't complain, and remember, have fun.